so oh, there we go. Have to consent to that. So we have a partnership with WATESOL. It's just an opportunity for us to share with WATESOL members a chance to explore our site. Normally our platform is kind of closed to the public. It is a subscription platform, and we do have schools that sometimes choose to subscribe. So schools or districts or organizations. We also are accessible to just individuals. And in fact, the bulk of our subscribers are individual teachers. But it can be really hard to figure out what the site is about and what's behind that paywall. So we just wanted to give you guys a chance to play around with that. So if you are a WATESOL member, you have a 2-month access code that you can use. Lay's going to go ahead and post that in the chat for you guys if you haven't seen it in your email. So that'll give you a chance to kind of explore the site, see if it is going to add value to you. But basically we provide content like ready-made lesson plans for teachers of all ages, all levels. Sorry, not teachers, teachers of students that are all ages and all levels. I guess the teachers can be all ages and all levels too, but hey. So anyway, Leia's gonna post that in the chat. And I see that she already posted that code, and also a link where you can go ahead to activate your trial. And you can do that anytime, like within the next year, you know, so if you want to try it out for next semester or whatever, that's totally fine to use that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen because I think it's a little more interesting than just listening to me. So let me share my screen here. And I'm also going to take a quick peek at our chat, if I can find where the chat went to now that I've minimized that. All right. So, and get a sense, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, and Leia is going to be hanging out there as well. So she can answer any questions that you have as I present. And I'm seeing that we have someone who's teaching in the intensive English program at Georgetown, which is exciting. You also teach freshman comp for international students, which is great. We do have materials that really stretch all the way up to even like preparing for business, like business school or something like that. So I think even some of these materials could be used for like just native speakers personally. But of course, we also stretch all the way down to like learning your alphabet, learning how to write the letters for the first time and things like that. Let's see, I see we're working with ESL to adults in Northern Virginia Community College. Yay. Okay, lots of stuff for newcomers as well, or if they're just prepping for other like job or work. I'm seeing we're teaching 9th and 10th graders, which is great also. And let's see. All right. So that's what I'm seeing who's responded. So we're already seeing a wide range of ages and levels. Okay, so some other people working with the 9th and 10th graders as well. Great. So my plan here was to just kind of do an overall orientation to the platform. I'm logged in right now in my teacher account. And well, actually, I'm logged into an administrator account, but do any of you have experience with ESL Library already? You can go ahead and, or are you all, I can see some head shakes and two. Okay, so it looks like we've got a lot of people who are completely new to the platform. Nope, no experience. Okay, that's awesome. So I'll just do kind of a general overview of the site. It takes about an hour. So there's a lot of content on this platform. So I'll go ahead and get started. But again, Lay is there in the chat to help respond to any questions you have. Feel free to get as like detailed with your questions as you want about your specific student needs, concerns. Lay and I have both been teachers. She's worked more with elementary school. I've worked more with like community college adults. I also taught high school internationally. So we're teachers, we're here to support. Just let us know what you're looking for. And if we don't have the materials that you're looking for, we'll also talk to our publishing team because we are a small team and we're interested in teacher feedback. We really care about that. Okay, so with all that said, I'm going to go ahead, start presenting. So here I am, I'm in the ESL Library platform. So as soon as you get your code activated, this is what you will see once you log into your account. And right now I know I'm logged in because I can see my name here in the top right corner. By the way, if you are part of a like school or district and you think that this might be helpful to other educators in your like organization or something like that, just send us an email to hello@esllibrary.com and we're happy to try to get your group connected so they can try it out. We're also happy to do like teacher trainings and things like that for your group. Okay, so on the main page here, there's a lot of information. There's like a lot of materials on this site. So to find things, there's a lot of different ways to find materials. The first thing you'll see is on the top left corner, there's some materials and a class prep dropdown. So under the materials menu, that's where you'll find your lessons, your flashcards, resources, and blog posts. So we have it says over 1,000 lessons on the site. It's more like 1,400 plus lessons that are ready-made, ready to go for you to teach like a 2-hour class or whatever it is. We also have flashcards that are completely customizable. And we do a separate workshop about the flashcards to help you get started in creating them and activity ideas. I'll go over them really briefly today, but Leigh will post a link in the chat where you can register if you want to join us for that 1-hour like workshop, more interactive kind of activity. You can join us, and we're doing our first one on Thursday actually, so you can go ahead and join us there. But the cool thing about the flashcards is there are over 3,000 on the site, and then you also can edit the text on the flashcards, and that's really key because you can make the text, let's say it's a picture of a car and it says car. Well, you can edit that text on it to, sorry about the airplane going on overhead. You can edit that text so that it can make it like more difficult vocabulary for your students, maybe more specific. Or if you are wanting to like make a question, you can post a question there instead. So there's a lot of different things you can do. You could put a different language there, you know, lots of different options for you. So the flashcards are very cool. They're very versatile, and they're useful for so much more than just introducing and reviewing vocab. The resources, those are not lesson plans per se. Let's click into one actually. So the resources are things like assessment tools. You'll find things like grammar charts in here, maybe sentence stems, which I love. I'm going to just click into one of those because they're so cool. So the sentence stems, for example, we have like the language of sensitive subjects. If you want to talk to your students about, you know, how do you start forming sentences related to sensitive subjects, I'm going to click into the PDF version real quick. And I'll get into more of the PDF versus the digital version in a bit, but just to show you quickly what a sentence stem is. I think you know what sentence stems are, but again, this topic here, the language of sensitive subjects, it's like, is everyone comfortable discussing XYZ? It's really a difficult subject for me, but I'm okay talking about what, you know, whatever. I hope this doesn't upset or embarrass anyone. So there's all these different sentence stems, and you know, this is a resource. It has, it's not a lesson plan per se, but you could see how you could easily turn this into a lesson plan or a good chunk of a lesson if you wanted to, or just, you know, as something as a resource for your students for them to practice. The other sentence stems that we have in here, for example, like the language of evidence, we're talking about math. How do you reflect upon something? How do you give your opinions? How do you give feedback to other people? Talk about science or telling stories. So there's a lot of really cool resources in here that I personally love. And I honestly think some native speakers could, you know, benefit from learning some of these sentence stems as well, or practicing some of these ways to address things. Let's look at a couple more resources real quick. The resources, by the way, are arguably one of the least interesting things on the site, but I always feel like I want to point them out because people get so focused on the lessons that they miss out on some of these resources as well. So we have warm-ups and fillers if you're working with young learners, or you just want something that's a little more lightweight for your students to use. There's some young learner activities here. I like to point out the real world reading, especially since we have someone here who's working with adults. The real world reading, it's kind of a newer set. We don't have a ton of resources right now. There's only 10 in here, but these are things like ATM receipts or bank statements that you wouldn't necessarily want to bring. You wouldn't bring your own ATM receipt to class. You wouldn't have your students bring their ATM receipt to class, but you would like to have them maybe know how to read those and interact with them. I'll just click into the PDF version again. So again, this is not a lesson plan, it's a resource, but you have a little bit of a lesson plan built around it, teaching a bit of vocab. I think there's a few questions, but what we really care about are these like pieces of relia, I guess you would call them. So sample ATM receipts that your students can look at and begin to understand how to read their own ATM receipt. So, and then a bit of questions. So those real world resources are pretty cool as well. And I'll just point out one more type of resource, which is in our language scenes. And by the way, almost all of the resources on our site are printable, or you can display them digitally. So I've been showing you, of course, digitally. I'm screen sharing with you the PDF version, but we have a more interactive digital component as well. Let's take a quick peek at a picnic. It's kind of useful for any age or level. And so these language scenes are exactly what they sound like. It's a scene with a bunch of stuff happening. It's very open-ended. Close that sidebar real quick. And you can zoom in a bit if you were, you could print it, of course, for your students and do a bunch of different open-ended kind of activities with these. But if you're teaching online, like so many of us are right now, you can also display this kind of large on your screen for your students as you're sharing over Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. And you can ask them, like, maybe have them list 5 words that they know, that they recognize in the picture, or maybe they write a sentence or a paragraph or a story about the picture. Maybe they're forming questions. Maybe you're playing an I Spy game. So there's all these different things you can do. And then you also have, some basic ways to interact with these, which I'll get into later with the PDF versions. But I just wanted to show you what a couple of the resources are on the site, since it's kind of a grab bag of different materials. All right, and then we also have a blog which has under materials, which are teaching tips for you. I'll just click into it real quick. So what's our featured article today is fun with kangaroo words. And I have no idea what this one is about. We have things like key takeaways from different events. We feature different teachers from around the world and talk about those. We have categories for students, like what do you miss about pre-pandemic life? And if you click into those, by the way, we're publishing about 3 different blog posts a week. So these are always coming out. We always try to keep it current. For Veterans Day, we had military language in everyday use. And this is just bonus content that's available. Even if you're not a subscriber, actually, you have access to the blog. But if you are a subscriber, you have this little folder icon on the blog posts, and you can save these blog posts as well as lessons, flashcard sets that you create, resources. All of those things can be saved to folders that you create, so that when you're just basically to help you organize your teaching life as you're going to create, maybe, what is this topic again that we're doing here? This one is, what do you miss about pre-pandemic life? I mean, that could be any unit here, but let's say in spring, we're going to reflect upon the pandemic because it's, the 1-year mark of people being kept isolated. I'm blanking on my words here, sorry. I can go ahead, save that into the folder, or I could create a new folder, whatever. And then later when I'm doing my prep, I can just go to my folders and I can come right into here and find this article along with any other lessons, resources, and stuff that I've saved, and find it all in one place. So really cool blog posts here. Definitely recommend that you explore this. Even if you don't, want to subscribe, there's a lot of good material there, but also great for organizing and planning your lessons if you are teaching and a subscriber. All right. So we can get a bit into like the classes, flashcard sets, all of that stuff later. But I just want to point out on the main page here, you can always filter by level. And so you'll see all these different categories. I'll zoom in a tiny bit for you here. So we have like discussions and debate categories. And you can see if you look closely at this, that it says that there are over 100 lessons in this category, this kind of subcategory. And there's an audio icon and also a computer icon. And that just means that, there's audio in at least one of the lessons within the set. In fact, most of our lessons have an audio component. And then also that at least one lesson within the set has been converted to a digital, more interactive format. So we saw the PDF version, and then there's also the same kind of material on the PDF that's been converted into a more interactive version that you can assign as homework to your students as well. And I can see that this category is aimed at low, intermediate to advanced level students. And that's what our filter right here will do for us. So if I'm looking for categories that only apply to low, intermediate, I can just see what those are immediately. And then you can always filter again once you're within the category to see only the lessons that are for that level. All right, but just to give you a little overview, this is why we give you the access to the site, is there's so much content on the site. There's, over 1,400 lessons. So you're going to want to go and explore the different categories. We'll just take a peek at probably 2 categories today, but we have grammar topics, and within grammar, you can see there's practice worksheets, there's grammar stories. There are these true grammar stories, basic like sentence practice. For young learners and basic adult literacy, we have a whole section here. We have more like everyday English, so things like going to the doctor or practicing role plays, everyday kind of dialogues like going to get your haircut, things like that. And I won't go through all of these, but you can see more academic, kind of tested academic topics. So like if we click into reading in English, for example, you can see some of the lessons here. So this is more what you're tested on, right? Skimming and scanning, identifying register, identifying the main idea, identifying the author's purpose. So different, more academic kinds of ways of reading. But if you just want reading practice, then you might want to check out the reading and discovery section, which has, famous people, places, things. I love this one right here, English with the Washington Post. This is updated every week with a new story. And we always have new and featured topics right at the top. So we've got UFOs and the US government. And this is one of the categories that also has materials at multiple levels. Usually, like in this case, you can see a low intermediate and a high intermediate. This one about Texas Bakery supports pride. It's low intermediate, intermediate, and advanced. So this category itself is aimed at low intermediate to advanced. So you won't find stuff for beginners in here, but there's materials at different levels. So lots to explore. And of course, you can always see they're broken into these categories like business topics, politic topics, environmental topics. And this is growing, like I said, every single week. If you're teaching that kind of like what's in the news, current events sort of course, this is really cool. And adults respond really well to this. All right, so I'm not going to go through everything, but you can see we have quite a variety on that site. And we have a few other ways. I'm going to just point out there's also a calendar tab. And this is if you want to see like what's happening in June, for example. Maybe you're looking for some ideas. It's Pride Month. So we have links to lessons or resources that relate to that topic here. For example, on the 4th, it was National Donut Day. So there's a lesson on that. World Environment Day. So you can find different things here that you can explore as well. And there's also historical events. So Anna Frank's birthday was in 1929, for example, and there's a lesson about her and also a Holocaust Remembrance Day lesson. So for me, when I was working with adults, I really enjoyed kind of talking with my students about what's going on in the world, what's relevant, and also historically to kind of help them feel more interconnected with everything, not just learning language, right? So this was a feature I really liked. And we also have collections. I'll give you a heads up that very soon this collections tab is going to disappear. We're reworking this and it's going to become way cooler, but I'll show you what it looks like at the moment. And it'll still be the same kind of idea a week or a month from now or whatever it is when we switch it over, but we have lessons put into more themes. So if you're looking for lessons on social justice, for example, you'll find a theme here. You can click in, again, always filter by level, and you can find different topics related to that broken into categories. So the new iteration of this is going to be, basically the same content, but just put in a little bit more friendly, accessible way, I think. All right. So that's a lot about how to find content. There is one last way I want to point out before we actually get into like a lesson and assigning homework and things like that. If you go to class prep, this is not, it's not well placed, I think, on our site. It's kind of hidden and it's a really good place to get started. If you go to class prep, so go to that class prep dropdown and go to folders and click into that. In addition to the ability to create those like custom folders that I kind of talked about when we were talking about blog posts and organizing, we also have these pre-made folders, which you can kind of think of as like a digital textbook. So by default, it'll take you to my folders, your folders. And all of your different units here, you can, drag things into the order you like. You can click into your lessons and see what lessons are there, add things, delete things. So you've got your nice little set of folders there. If you're part of a group, by the way, other teachers can share with you and you can share with them. But those pre-made folders are that third tab over. And these are those like digital textbooks. So if you're teaching a course on, these are fairly new. They came out like, I want to say about 3 or 4 months ago. So we're still in the process of adding new folders. But you can see, for example, if you're teaching a 4 skills course, you're listening, speaking, reading, writing to maybe preschool to grade 2, or maybe you're working with high school, or you're working with adults who are beginners, you can click into one of those courses. And it gives you basically a template. So it starts with notes for you as the teacher if you want to read how to use the course and what its goals are and things like that. But then it has a recommended teaching order. It includes lessons. It also includes flashcards, all kinds of different things. And the coolest part about this is not that you have a pre-made template, because anything that we create is never going to be perfect for your students. What's really cool about this is that if you, let's say I am teaching that 4 skills course for beginners, what did I say, beginners? I can go to the 3-dot menu next to it, click on that, and then copy it to my folders. And when you do that, it's going to make a copy from here, this template area, all the way to my folders. And once it's in your folders, it's yours. Like you can delete the lessons, you can click into it and say, this is never going to work with my students. I don't want that. So you can totally manipulate it. You can add new lessons in, you can rearrange the order. You can add custom flashcard sets that you create. And then, if you really like what you've created, maybe you want to share with another teacher that teaches beginning level, or you want to teach with a teacher, another teacher in your district that teaches grade 4, you can go ahead, go to the 3-dot menu on the right and click share with. So if you're part of a group, again, I can choose to share with Lay, or I can choose to share with all of the teachers in my district. So anyone who wants to play around with this can. All right, so that's the folders, pretty cool little feature there. And a great place, like I said, to get started. If you're just like, I don't know where to start with this platform, you can start in there. Again, you just go to class prep folders and then these ESL library folders. And I do want to point out one kind of unusual category in here, which is the videos category. And this has all of our lessons that contain a video within it. You can find those all right here. So videos are a new feature to our site. There aren't a ton of lessons with them. Probably, actually, I have no idea. Lay, you might have a sense of how many videos there are. Let's say 100. I don't know. It's a very rough guess. So you can go in here. Actually, we might be able to get a better sense. If we just scroll through, you can see, a decent number of lessons, but we're in the process of adding lessons. So if you really like using the videos with your students, you might want to also take a look at this category and see which lessons do have those videos already. Okay. So now that we've talked about sort of all the different ways you can find content and a tiny bit about organizing the content, let's actually take a look into a lesson. And each lesson is going to be very different depending on the category that it's in, depending on the lesson itself. I've clicked into the discussion starters category, which is one of our largest categories, but also I noticed a lot of you are working with adults or a little bit older students. So this is really great for like teenagers to adults. And I'll take a look at something for lower literacy next after this. But just to give you a sense of what it might look for if your students are more like low intermediate to advanced, teenager to adult. Some of these also, I would say, work for like elementary school, like maybe 4th grade plus, but as long as they're a high enough literacy level. All right, so again, new and featured lessons at the top, and you can see this is that category that has over 100 lessons in it, and there's quite a wide variety. So we have environmental topics in here, things like vanishing honeybees or food waste, for example. We have technology topics, educational topics here, classrooms of the future, for example. I think we'll probably take a look at this one. And if you notice, by the way, there are these little heart icons here. As I'm just browsing through, maybe I'm watching TV and I'm just kind of casually going through the site, checking out categories. If I see one of these and it looks kind of interesting, I can just click the little heart there. Maybe homeschooling could be interesting for one of my classes. When I click on that, what it does is it puts it into this class prep likes area. And so then later I can go into likes and I can find all the lessons that have caught my eye and, you know, that I think might be interesting. And I can sort them at that point into my different folders if I want to, or if I'm ready, you know, right now. And if I mean, I can heart it, but I can also just add it directly to a folder by clicking on that folder icon right next to the heart. And here I could say homeschooling. Well, I'd like to talk about that, you know, in my maybe my fall class, which I don't have here. So I can create a new folder and call it Unit 4 Fall. I talk about that at the beginning of the school year. I think that'll be interesting. And there we go. So I can always find that again later under class prep folders. All right. And you can see there's quite a variety of content even within, you know, this category. Some of it's quite lightweight. But some of it, like the child slavery in the cocoa fields, that's a much heavier topic. So something, you know, dress codes is a bit lighter weight topic. Militarized police, a bit heavier. So you can see there's a wide variety on the site. I'm going to click into one just to show you. We also, if you happen to be working with more either like populations that have certain sensitivities or concerns, that you need to be careful about bringing up with them, or if you're working with younger students that might have some concerns. If I click into our emoji lesson here, you might think emojis, you know, what could possibly be bad about that? And I mean, bad is a very subjective word, but I just want to point out that there's this teacher discretion label that we've added to our lessons. And I think we mentioned maybe the alcohol emoji or something like a beer emoji or something in this lesson. So we just add this teacher discretion label if it is not apparent from the title of the lesson, just to say like, you might want to take a peek at this if you're a teacher, just to see make sure it's appropriate for your students. Since that, you know, you're the expert on your students and that really is a judgment that should be left up to you and your school. All right, let's click into a lesson here. I'm going to click into the classrooms of the future. This is a rare lesson that has multiple levels. I'm going to click into the high intermediate version just to show something a little bit higher literacy level. And when you click onto a lesson, if you recall, this was one of those categories that has that computer icon next to it, which means that it also has that more digital interactive version in addition to those PDFs. So when it has that computer icon next to it, it means that in addition to the PDF view, we'll also have the task player and the assignment manager. I'm going to start with the PDF view. We won't spend long looking at this. I just want to point out that there's American English, Canadian English, and British English, which is being added to all the lessons on the site right now. We also have a teacher version of the PDF as well as a student version of the PDF. And those are completely identical, just the teacher version has an answer key at the end. And then if there's an audio component, which most lessons have, you can click on the audio icon right or down at the bottom, and you can either download the audio or you can stream it live. And since this has a British version of the text, there's also the British audio as well. Okay, I'm going to hide this sidebar by clicking on that little like 3-line hamburger menu on the left-hand side. And that'll just give me a little more screen space here. When you're teaching online or digitally, I really recommend using that more digital interactive format. But some students and some teachers are just more comfortable working from a PDF. Or you may have printed out the PDFs, you know, for your students to use in class, and maybe you want to bring the PDF up on your screen behind you in your physical classroom as well. So that's an option that you can do here. So let's hide that sidebar. I'm going to zoom in a tiny bit here to make that a little bigger. You can, of course, download the PDFs with the download arrow on the right-hand side. You can print the PDF if you want to print it, or you can use these basic like interactive tools. Or nothing too exciting here, but we have a pen tool, for example, if you want to like, you know, maybe you want to draw a little smiley face on this guy, or maybe you want to do like a matching activity and just, you know, draw and connect the lines to the words. So there's a few basic ways for you to interact, underline a word that maybe your students need to pay attention to, things like that. It's also an eraser and a text tool. If you want to ask them, like, what is this object here? Is it a cell phone? Is it a smartphone? Is it a computer? Oh no, what is it, guys? It's a tablet. So maybe you have a few other, things you want to do with your students as well. All right, let's get rid of that guy. Delete. Okay, I won't go through the actual layout of this lesson itself because, as I mentioned, it varies from category to category and lesson to lesson. I'll just point out really briefly that this is a discussion starter category. So the goal is to lead up to these really engaging and meaningful discussions with your students. So it starts with some warm-up questions just to get your students engaged. Then it goes into a little bit of vocab preview. A bit of reading. So they do a little reading about this topic using those vocab words. They make sure they understood understood the article content with that comprehension check, and then a vocab review to kind of practice with that vocab. So it's, it's what you would create as a teacher. This one also happens to have some kind of like a grammar comment. Not all of them do, but this one does. Get a little practice with that. And then it leads up to these discussions questions. So again, something really meaningful like number 3 here, can technology get in the way of learning? Which, that's a great conversation to have with your students. And then there's a group task and a few other things, our listening activity. And then our answer key. All right. And by the way, the answer key, I just want to point out, does mention like how long the lesson is estimated to take. Of course, that depends on your students, how long you spend on each part. But I just wanted to mention that as well. All right. So that is sort of an overview of the PDF. One last thing about this here that's important to know. You can, if you want to, share this PDF with your students. And that is this little push pin icon here at the top bar on the right-hand side. If you click on that push pin, if you happen to use Google Classroom, you can just share this PDF direct to your students. Or if you are teaching in any other way, really, maybe you're sending email messages to your students, or maybe you are using WhatsApp or Facebook chat or Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, any of those, you can just copy the link here. And that's going to copy the link for the student PDF. And anyone who is marked as your student within ESL Library will get access. They can, let's say I copy the link here, I paste it to my Facebook page, right? If my brother goes and clicks on that link, he's not going to see anything. But if one of my students clicks on that link, he's going to go and be able to start using that student PDF. He can use these same tools here, the pen, the text, all that stuff, and he can download it and then email it to me, or however I collect like PDF kinds of responses from my students. Again, not my recommended method of doing online homework sharing, but it's an option for you if that works best for you and your students. If you do want to assign homework digitally, I really recommend using our assignment manager, which will share these interactive digital tasks that we're about to look at. So let's click into there. Clicking into our task player. So the task player, you can see on the left-hand side, we have like 16 different tasks here. They're in sort of a recommended order, but you can skip around, go into whatever order you like. And it's basically the same content that you'll find on the PDF, but there are some differences. For example, this one starts with a warm-up video, and there was no video in the PDF, of course. So I can hide that sidebar there if I want to. Again, you can use this digital interactive player if you're teaching in a physical classroom and you just want to project on a screen behind you and kind of elicit responses from your students live. That's an option. You can assign these digital interactive tasks to them as homework, and then maybe you want to review them together in class and share it on the screen behind you. That's another option. You can be over Zoom or Google Meet like we are right now, and you can share your screen through your teacher account, right? So you're sharing what you see with your students, and you can elicit responses from them that way. Maybe have them type in the chat or shout it out over the microphone. And then another option, of course, is to just assign these as digital homework to your students, which I'll show you in a bit. All right, so let's pretend I am in my teacher account like I am with you guys. I'm on Zoom with my students, and I'm just teaching them live face-to-face in a synchronous way. So I want to do this warm-up video so that we can have a discussion, and introduce this topic of classrooms of the future. I have my video here. I can click on these little arrows to make it larger. I also have a little icon, a gear icon in the bottom right here, and I can adjust the speed to be half speed if I want to, or I can make it 2 times speed if I want to be kind of silly and challenge my students listening. That's an option as well. And I'm going to click play. I'm not going to make us listen to this, but there's a little video here. And when we get to the end of the video, it's going to have some warm-up questions that you can discuss with your students. These warm-up questions are also just printed right here at the bottom. So if you want to just read off of there, that's an option for you too. All right, so you can click I'm finished, or if you want, you can just go to the sidebar again and go to the next task or whatever it is. Let's just take a peek at like a couple of these activities. Again, the tasks that are available, they're going to vary from category to category, lesson to lesson. I'm going to just take a peek at the vocab preview A, and then we'll look at 1 or 2 other little task types before we look at a whole like lower literacy level activity in general. Okay, so this is a classic, matching activity here. I have a word, I'm trying to match a word to a definition, and this is a preview task. So it's not meant to teach words, it's more to check for students' background knowledge, right? So what I could do is, again, if I'm sharing my screen with my students, they don't have the ability to click and do this themselves unless I assign it to them as homework. And then, that requires a little more tech savvy on my part, a little more tech savvy on my students' part, and your students may be perfectly ready to do that. So one thing you can do is if your students are a little more digitally literate, a little more confident with their digital literacy, you can assign this to them as homework, and you could have them maybe get into Zoom rooms, have your students, like maybe have one student in the group log into their own personal account and share their screen and lead an activity. So that's an option, something I would love to do with my adults who are a little bit like intermediate advanced level, give them that chance to lead a classroom discussion basically. But we'll just talk about this in a like not so confident like digital teaching 101 kind of way, which is that I'm sharing my screen as the teacher and I'm eliciting those responses from my students. So again, they're putting their responses in the chat, they're typing or they're saying them over the microphone. So I might ask my students like, hey, does anyone know which word or which word here means providing new solutions and methods? Innovative. Does anyone know which word matches this definition? And they might type it into the chat, shout over the mic. And maybe I'm gonna say groundbreaking, so I can click that there and we'll see if we're right in a little bit, how we did as a class. I could also call on an individual student. I might choose a word from up here, maybe tech savvy. And I could say, hey, Kaylee, do you know which definition matches this word tech savvy? And I can kind of scroll through and maybe she sees the word tech right here and guesses, maybe it's number 3, teacher. So I can go ahead and click that. And I'm just going to randomly click in the rest of these. So I'm zoomed in quite a bit, so I'm having to scroll a little bit here. Okay, so as a class, we got 3 out of 6 correct. Not horrible for just guessing. And we can review our answers, see what was correct, number 3, and what was incorrect, and what the correct answers should have been. And of course, if you had assigned this as homework, your students are going to be able to review their answers for their individual results as well. I could try again if I want to. That's going to erase all of our results and we'll start totally from the beginning. But let's take a look at another task real quick. Let's look at the listen and type, totally different type of activity, so to speak. So this is your classic like gap fill activity. We saw in the PDF, we had that gap fill listening activity. In this case, the audio is built right down here at the bottom, so very easy to do. Again, I'm sharing my screen as the teacher. And what I would probably do, since this is a high intermediate class, I might just let it read through the whole thing, or maybe I'll let it read through this first paragraph. So I would click play, let it read through the whole first paragraph, and then click pause. And I would ask my students, what did you hear in the gap here? What did you hear for like the second gap? And they could type it into the chat, shout it out, whatever. And I do not remember the answer to this. So if you ever need to check like the answer key in this version, you just click on the little apple icon next to the task, and it'll show you what all the correct answers are. Of course, this is only available in the teacher view, and you don't want to take a look at this while your students are, seeing your screen. You want to do this before you start sharing your screen, but I'm not a good model of a teacher today, so cut it, scrambling. Okay. Let's hide that sidebar again. Okay, so I can go ahead and type, my answers in here, leave some blanks, put in some random answers, and click submit. And of course, we got just 1 out of 13 correct. I can review my answers, again, see what was correct, what was incorrect, what the correct answer should be. And one of the things that I like about looking in this kind of format is that there is an audio component to this task, it's built in right as you're reviewing the answers. So if I notice that maybe we have an error in the last paragraph here, I can just kind of scrub forward to the end, click play, and we can re-listen to that paragraph if we need to, or whichever paragraph. I also, in this task type, have the option to, of course, try again, which deletes everything, or we can fix our answers. And fixing the answers means that it's going to underline the ones that are correct and highlight the ones that are incorrect. And if I recall correctly, scrambling was the answer. So we can go ahead, we can re-listen if we need to using this audio and edit those. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Hopefully we'll see 2 out of 10 or 2 out of 13. And anyway, so we can keep doing that. All right. I'm going to show you one more thing. This is not something that you would want to do live, but this is a new feature on our site, which is the speaking practice. And I want to show you this just because, we're in a lesson that happens to have it. This came out, I want to say about 2 months ago, our speaking practice, and it's something that's great to assign to your students as homework. Great to kind of assess their speaking ability or kind of check in on their speaking ability. There are, I want to say 10 or 11 different speaking types of speaking practice on the site at this point, but we're adding more. And I think we're nearing 400 different speaking practice activities on the site. So if you were to assign this as homework, your students would see basically this. And they'll have this little question prompt here. I'm zoomed in a bit, but if I was, if it's at normal view size, it'll be very clear like this. By the way, this all adjusts to the size of the device. If your students have a smartphone, if they have a tablet, a laptop, everything adjusts to fit their screens very nicely. But I'm going to stay zoomed in for you guys. And it just asks them, like, what do you think it will be like to be a kindergarten student in 20 years? And we have a little picture to kind of get them inspired and thinking. And then they would go ahead and record their answer by clicking this red icon. They're going to record for up to 2 minutes maximum. Click stop when they're done. And then they can re-listen to what they've recorded here. And then if they don't like it, they can delete it, record again. If they like it, they can just go on to the next question. I'm just going to click through. Again, at the very end, they can edit all of their responses, re-listen to them, and then they can submit their answers to the teacher. So that's kind of a cool new task type that you can play around with and assign to your students. Again, not so good to do live because, if you're sharing your screen with the students, then it's going to be recording your voice. So that's not ideal. Okay, so that was a high intermediate, kind of more teenager to adult oriented lesson. Let's look at something for a little bit lower literacy level, and let's show assigning some homework to them as well. Let's go into something from our young learner and adult literacy section. And I'm going to hop into the word bank. With your eagle eyes, you may be able to see this category is listed as basic literacy to beginners. But I have personally used this with my high intermediate students. And the only difference is that for lower level students, it takes them a bit longer. For higher level students, they learn it faster and they can work through the material faster, and also my students just found it fun. So if you're looking for something a little fun, maybe an after test activity or something like that, you might want to explore the word bank even if you have higher level students. And I always like to mention that, pretty recently we released this dinosaur lesson. Some of the vocab in here, I did not know it. As a native English speaker, I didn't know the names of all these dinosaurs. So I really feel like take the levels with a grain of salt, for sure. All right, let's hop into, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. This is not fitting a lot on the screen. I want to find our community helpers lesson. Let's see this one. Community helpers. I like this because it's kind of good for any age, different ages it works well with. We've looked at our PDF before. We looked at the task player. We want to assign some homework now. So if you're new to this lesson or category, you might want to explore the task player so that you know what these different types of tasks are. But once you're familiar with the types of tasks, then you can go to the assignment manager and you can start assigning tasks to your students. So I can assign this lesson to my individual students or maybe to a full class. Let's assign it to a whole class. I'm going to choose to assign it to my conversation class and click continue. By default, all of my students are going to receive this lesson, but let's say if Sarah doesn't need it for whatever reason, I can deselect her. I'm going to click continue. And if I want to assign this to, if I want to assign all of the tasks, I can see here again as a reminder, I'm assigning this to 3 of my students. I can see who they are right there. And there are 7 different possible tasks for me to assign. So if I want to assign all of these, I just click select all. And then I always set a due date and then assign it very quick. But for me personally, I tend to like to, we do some of it in class and then some I like to assign as homework. So I'm going to just choose the picture dictionary to assign. Maybe we do image match A and maybe the open-ended questions as well. Okay. Actually, I'm going to show you this see and spell too, just because that's a different task type. Okay, so now we have all of these different tasks here. I'm going to set a due date and let's make these due on the 22nd. You can choose a due time if you want as well. So if I want this to be due by 1 in time for our class, I can go ahead and do that. And I can then click assign. Okay. I also want to point out that if you happen to teach a class where you like to stagger the release of new content, for example, every Friday at 4 p.m., you're going to have new homework and your students just know that. You can also set a start date, and that's when it becomes available to your students. So I could set Friday at 4 o'clock, and then I could go ahead and schedule like 20 different lessons to come like this Friday, next Friday, the Friday after that, just to kind of schedule all of my homework at once for my students for the entire semester. But in this case, I'm going to leave it open. And you can, by the way, if you wanted to set an individual start date or individual due date or different due time even, you can set those on the right-hand side next to each task. But for now, I'm going to keep everything the same. We're going to make it available immediately and just click assign. If you happen to use Google Classroom, you can just click on this icon. It'll post it to Google Classroom, and your students will just click on it in Google Classroom and go straight to the task. If you're using any other platform at all, just send your students to esllibrary.com/students, and they can log in through there, and I'll show you that in a second. So esllibrary.com/students, and it's the only link your students are ever going to need to know. Okay, let's click OK. I'm done assigning those. And my work is kind of done as a teacher for the moment. So I imagine some of you might be wondering, what does the student side of this look like? And so let's go take a quick peek over there. Okay. So here we are in the land of students. We're at esllibrary.com/students. And if I was using Google Classroom, my students are just going to click on the link or the lesson, and they're going to skip over this page entirely. If my students use Google for any other purpose, Gmail or Google Calendar or something, they can log in one click with Google. If my school or district happens to use Clever, we can log in with Clever. Or if you're very old-fashioned like I am, you can log in with a username and a password. All right. So I'm now in my student Keely's account. She has this new homework that's due soon. Any homework that she's already completed, like a lesson that's completely finished, will be under this completed tab, and she can find it here. She can always revisit it, see her feedback, things like that. She can redo activities as many times as she wants. But let's click into our new homework, and I've got this bell icon to indicate that it's a new task. Okay, so right now I can see that I have 4 different tasks that were assigned to me by my teacher. All of them have been unopened at this point, and I can see when they're due. So let's take a quick look at this picture dictionary. So the picture dictionary is, we talked about the flashcards really briefly. The picture dictionary is basically our digital version of our flashcards, but they're pre-created for a specific lesson. So if I want to preview the words from the lesson, I can go ahead and click start. I can click on the picture. It's very simple, like a very simple format for them. If I click on the word, it's going to become a little bit bigger. If I click on the word again, we go back to this view. And I also have the audio in the top right corner here. And again, if they're on like a smartphone or something, the audio is like right by the guy's head here. And I can just click through, and I'm not going to bother to look carefully at each of these, but I can just preview my vocab or review it if I want to. And at the end, it just says thanks. There's nothing really to score in this case. I can try again and just review them if I want to, or I can go back to my assignments. And now that I've done that, there's no score again for this kind of task. Let me zoom in for you a little more. But I can see that that task was completed. And if I want to retry it, I can. All right, let's look at image match A, this next task that I have here. And again, if you assign this, to your students as homework, this is a very simple click and match interactive task. But if I were to teach this live to my students, you can do some really creative things with this. For example, you could have your students have a physical piece of paper next to them. If they have a camera, I might, look at the word librarian and say, you guys have 30 seconds to draw me a picture of the librarian, and then show it, show it on to your camera. Or you could have them, you could select a word, select a picture and have them then write the word physically. So there's, different ways to be creative. You can play an I Spy game. I spy someone holding a sign. Who is it? So there's different ways you can play this. But if it's assigned as homework, it's a simple match and click. All right. Oh no, I only got 3 out of 5 correct. Okay, so I can try again. And I'm doing this for a reason. I'll show you guys in a second. Let's try to get these all correct this time. That's a librarian, and this is our crossing guard. Click on finished. Okay, now we got 5 out of 5 correct. So let's go back to our assignments. All right, so now I can see, sorry, my internet's being a tiny bit slow here. All right. So I can see, I can retry these activities. I can see this was a scored activity. So I got 3 out of 5 on this task. And I can also see that I spent 58 seconds on this task and it has been completed. So I know that this was my first score, and I know that I actually made multiple attempts at this and I got a better score. So if I click on the link here, it's going to show me the results from my attempt 1 and my attempt 2. And so I can see again that I got 5 out of 5. I only spent 9 seconds on my second attempt, so I guess I learned really quickly. And I can even see the exact minute that I completed the task. I'm in California, that's why the time is different. And I can see how I did here. So your students can make as many attempts as they want. If you only want to count your students' first attempt, for example, you just let your students know, you can try this as many times as you want, but I'm only going to use your first try. And all of this data that the student can see, the teacher can also see. I'll show you how to see that in a moment. I just wanted to point out the see and spell activity just to show you a different task type. This is very simple. Again, this is like a good introduction or review. Here, maybe they've looked at the picture dictionary and now they're going to practice their words. They have the audio and they have a picture right here and they just type the word. So we don't need to go through all of those, but I just wanted to point out another really simple task. Let's look at one more, which is this question time. It's an open-ended question task. And so it says, which community job sounds like the best job and why? And so I could say teacher, of course, and go on to my next question. And then I'm just gonna click through the rest of these here. And again, student can review, they can tap to edit. I'm gonna just submit my answers so that we can see feedback for open-ended questions. All right, so it just says the teacher will review your answers. So of course this is open-ended questions, so there's no auto scoring for that. They'll need to wait for the teacher feedback on that. All right, so it'll just show no score and you can see how long they've spent. Okay, let's go ahead and hop back over to the land of the teachers and give some feedback real quick. Okay. So here we are, land of the teachers. Last thing I did was assigning homework. Let's pretend it's a brand new day. I'm going to be teaching this class based on the homework. I'm wondering, have my students actually done their homework? Did anyone actually review that picture dictionary? Things like that. So if I go to class prep, my classes, I can go see the work that's been assigned, things that are due soon. I can click into my classes. So let's click into that conversation class. And I can see just my general activity feed, what's been assigned, what's been canceled, different, sorry, I don't have a lot of creativity going on in here, but things that are due will be showing up and things like that as well. I have this little feedback icon also, which indicates that there's feedback that I need to provide as the teacher. So I can kind of follow that chain. And here I can see that lesson community helpers is the one that needs feedback. None of my students have fully completed all of the lesson, but I can see that Kaylee has finished 3 out of the 4 tasks, and I can see how long she's spent doing that work. And of course, we've got our feedback icon. So here I have a little bit of different information. I can see her scores, how long she spent on her tasks, that these have been completed. This one hasn't been opened yet. And actually I did open that. So I think I need to talk to our developers because that looks like a new little bug that just came out. So that would say that it's been opened at least. And here we have this little eyeball here saying visible results. So if I wanted to see her results from this matching activity, I can just click into here and see those results. And that's going to show us exactly what we saw in that student view before, her different attempts, all the detail, how long she spent on it and all of that. But there's nothing I need to score. So that's why it's just kind of this faded gray. If you want to look at it, you can, but it's been auto scored. Whereas something like that open-ended task, we've got this blue icon here kind of calling our attention saying that the feedback is required. Nothing happens if you don't give feedback. You're just going to have those little icons forever kind of haunting you. So if I click in here, this is where I have those open-ended questions, and it says like, what community job sounds like the best job? And she wrote teacher, of course. So I can say, oh, that answer, that exceeds my expectations. And if I want to, I can also give her feedback on this individual question as well. So I can say, great response, Kaylee. Yeah, something very useful like that. All right, and then what does a firefighter do? Look like she just typed random stuff, so I can just say, no, not mean it. So the rest she didn't give responses, so I don't need to leave anything, and I can just submit that feedback to her. So she can see those comments from her teacher. And one thing, oops, I forgot to show you, in image match A, this is the one that was auto-scored. If you do scroll to the bottom, maybe I do want to give my student some feedback. I noticed she really improved a lot between her 2 attempts. I can just give general feedback to her. So if you scroll to the very bottom, you can say, great improvement, Kaylee, and submit that. Okay. So now I can see that I've given feedback or given comments, and I've given her feedback there. By the way, also, you can see the total time they've spent on the assignment right at the top, and then the total time spent on like their first attempts. And you can click through to different students. All right, so that is like the core of the platform. I want to actually, let me just show you on the student side. Again, if they're in the student account and they get that feedback, they're going to see these little icons indicating that they have feedback. And of course, it'll show up on, you know, their main dashboard page as well, just to let them know you have feedback. And if they click in, they'll be able to see that general feedback from the teacher. Okay, now I think you know the core of everything there. So I'm going to spend, like I said, we have a whole workshop about creating flashcards, but let me just spend like 5 minutes showing the basics of the flashcards because they are very cool and there's so much you can do with them. I'm going to go to our search tool, which is actually my favorite button on the whole site, and click on that. And let's say I am teaching a lesson on summer. I might want to create a flashcard set to go with that. And maybe one exists already. And if I want to, I can browse, you know, materials, flashcards, and browse through all 3,000 on the site. And let's see, I'm just kind of curious. Weather, nature, and environment. Do we have one on summer by chance? Nope. Weather and seasons. So it doesn't look like we have an existing flashcard set anyway. So I would need to create a custom set. And it's fun to browse through all of these. We have fun like sets on, you know, eye idioms or digital literacy language, you know, red eye in the blink of an eye candy. So there are some pretty fun things just to explore the idioms, explore the flashcards themselves. But I have to teach on Monday. I know what I want to teach, and it's going to be about summer. So I can search top right corner and start creating my own custom flashcard set. So I'm going to search for, let's focus on gardening. So I'm going to search for gardening. I'm just going to search for the word garden and see if I get lucky. Right now it's searching through all of our materials, but if I want to only look at flashcards, I can click there. If I want, you know, blog posts, I can search there, lessons as well. But let's go to flashcards. And all these flashcards, I'm seeing the word garden, garden, but they're in these different categories like gardening, garden within games and hobbies, garden within plants, garden within house. So if I click on this flashcard, it's going to take me to where it lives. So I think I'm going to go to garden in gardening because that sounds the most promising for putting together my gardening flashcard set. So I can select all of the words if I want to. And when I do, they all go here on the kind of the left-hand side. But I don't want all of them, so let's deselect all of those. And let's just choose a few. So for gardening, let's add the garden, a flower, some tools, maybe some sunshine, maybe a hose. Okay, let's add a plant and a watering can and a pot. Okay, so almost everything. I should have just deselected the ones that I didn't need, which you can do, by the way, by just clicking on it again to deselect. So now I've got this nice little list in the left-hand side, but I'd like to add more than just this basic gardening stuff. I'm going to search and I'm going to add the word maybe sun. So I'm going to search for that. And ooh, sun, perfect. So let's go ahead and add the sun to my flashcard set. So now you can see it's added there on the left-hand side. And I also want to add a few flowers, plants to my garden. So let's search for like a tulip, which I love. And flashcards within the plants category. So we'll see a bunch of plants here. That's great. And let's pick what to add in my garden. We're going to add a cherry tree. We're going to add an elm. Where's my tulip? There it is. And let's just add a couple more things. A rose, maybe an orchid. That's a weird one to have in a garden, but sure. And a gardenia. That sounds nice. Okay, so now I have this beautiful set here on the left-hand side. I can go ahead and click manage if I'm ready to like make this my set. So I'm going to click manage. Right now it's showing up as an unsaved set, but I would like to save that. So I'm going to click save to, and we're going to save it to a set called gardening because I'm very creative. If I have an existing set, maybe for summer, I could just go ahead and add it to that. But right now I don't have anything like that. So let's just make a new one. Give it a little description and save that. Okay, so if at this point, if I wanted to, I could just launch our digital flashcard player, or I could start printing out these flashcards. But I'd like to do a little more than that. I'm going to organize these into a specific order. Let's put our tulip up front. And I'm going to change some of the text. So like I said, you could make it, you know, you can put some Spanish in there, Japanese. I could totally change the text. I'm going to say, what is in your garden? And actually just make it like a discussion starter itself. And then I can go ahead, maybe I want to make these all plural, you know, whatever I want to do. Change the vocab, decrease it. And when I'm ready, I can go ahead and print. We've got a bunch of like different flashcard settings you can use. And of course, like 16 on a page, 4 on a page, whatever. There's tons of different activities you can do. And when you print, it doesn't have to be like a physical print. It can be a PDF document, which means that you can share that PDF document with your students over Zoom or Google Meet, right? If you want to show them 4 pictures on a screen with image and text, or just images or just words, that's an option. So there's a lot of room for creativity, and that's kind of what we'll get into more in the workshop that's happening this Thursday. But for now, let's just go ahead and show off this digital flashcard set. And it looks exactly like that picture dictionary. So again, if I'm on Zoom, Google Meet, I can display this to my students and share it live. At the moment, you cannot assign these custom flashcard sets. That's coming in the future. So for now, you can just share them live with your students. But again, if you click on it, it'll show your words. You can have a little discussion. If you want to show the text only first, you can do that by going into, your settings. So I'm just using that little hamburger menu here on the left-hand side, and I can show text only. So if I want to like practice our reading ability or our reading skill, I can say, okay, guys, what does this say? Tulips. Yeah, you got that. Okay, good job. Do you remember what a tulip is? Can you draw me a picture of the tulip and show it to the screen or show it on your camera? Okay, yeah, you guys know what that is. Great job. So there's all these different things you can do. With this, pretty flexible, pretty simple. But again, you can change the font to be a literacy font. You can edit the text here. So if you're using this with your higher level students as well, maybe for this presentation, I want to change it from what is in your garden to what would be in your garden. And then I can change tulips to like, I would have tulips. So we're practicing like a higher grammar level without having to create a whole new set. And so anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this. So an introduction for you, hopefully inspires you. I like to do a lot of games and activities with my students using that. Whew. So thanks for sitting through all of that. Let me ask if you guys have any questions.
Hi, Tammy. Nancy just asked, so she's using Canvas for her program, and I explained that we are integrated with Google Classroom, but for Canvas, is there a way for her to share assignments within Canvas?
So at the moment, I mean, with any platform, you can always just post the link, esllibrary.com/students, and you can just type a little line of text. Hey guys, you have a new homework assignment, go to, that link and start doing your work. So that is like the easiest way. They do need to be, listed within your class on ESL Library for that to work, but that was really like the simplest. Yeah, totally the simplest way to approach that. Great question.
Another question about, I can see that we have ESL Library in our Clever account. for their school, but it is only until August 15th. Do you know if our school district is going to renew? I believe that would have to be up to, up to your school district. And I think the Clever admin would be able to help you out in that regard. But we are integrated with Clever. So if we can sync up the accounts so that they can do single sign-on that way.
Yeah, and I would just add that if you do find value in, the platform, if you think it is useful, just let your administrators know, because that we're still working on our administrative tools for your administrators to say how many teachers are using it and things like that. So they don't necessarily have data to that, whether teachers are using it or not. So just let them know if you like it. And we're always happy to work with school districts. We've created this tool. We want teachers to be able to use it. So yeah, just let us know and write in hello@esllibrary.com if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, problems, all those things.
I mean, I can write to my admin, but I don't know who does Clever. So, I mean, maybe you guys want to do the sales pitch. We have it in our Clever. So it's PGCPS. That would be a really big account.
Hey, you're with group accounts. Take a note on
if
that.
you want to send us an email at hello@esllibrary.com, there is a way for us to invite your school district, I guess. And so we could do it that way. If you haven't, I guess if you're expired, yeah, if you just email us, we can try to figure out how to reconnect you to Clever. Yeah.
I'll send that email right now. Yeah, because I love the fact that it's with Clever, because I use that with my students and it's so easy just to add that as another app. So
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, neither Leigh or I are super development savvy, but I know that our developers can just talk with your school and get it all sorted. So yeah, we're happy to do the legwork.
We have another question from Patrick. Navigation through the site is always a concern for me. I didn't always see jump off page link / terms matching landing page link terms. Am I incorrect?
Let me read through this one more time. Sorry, I'm looking over at my other monitor. I didn't always see jump off pages links in terms of matching landing pages. I may not be understanding your question correctly. Are you talking about giving links to students, or what?
No, just navigating through the site. Like if you jumped up to materials or class prep and you clicked on one of the options and you went to that page, could you quickly see where you were with regard to the navigation apparatus, such that you could get back to if you'd gone to the wrong page by mistake? As simple as that. Oh,
okay. Yeah. So you're saying kind of a classic see your trail of where you've been through. Not exactly to answer your question, really. No, the answer is no. We don't really show a clear breadcrumb kind of trail. I will say that you can always just click on ESL, this little logo here in the front, and it's always going to take you back to that main page if you're kind of getting lost. But if you go into discussion starters, say, and you'll see it for some of these, let's say I go into banning plastic bags, you will see a little trail right here. So you can see, oh, that was lessons discussion starters, but it's not there for every single page of the site. So half yes, half no. Yeah, good question.
We have another one from Maria. What is the background for ESL Library?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. If you're talking about kind of our origin story, is that what you're going for, Maria?
Yes, I'm talking about your origin story. Yeah, that's a good starting point.
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you go all the way down to the very bottom of our site, you'll find our About page. But basically, our founder and CEO, he's still our CEO, Ben, he founded the site in 2002 when he was actually teaching in Japan. He was actually teaching in Japan in the late 90s. And he was a teacher and he had 40 lessons that he had developed himself, and he put them online as a subscription service, if you can imagine, back in early 2002, what the internet looked like. So he had kind of a big uphill climb, but basically it went from those 40 lessons to him eventually hiring a copywriter to start writing our lessons, who was also a teacher, and a copy editor, and then a graphics designer. So all of those things are in-house. And it remained the 4 of them for quite a while. And eventually it's expanded over time. But it started as all PDF lesson plans.
Yes.
And basically a library of PDF lesson plans. And then in like 2016, they started adding these digital components. And it's really been in like the past 2 years that we've added a bunch of these new digital features, which is honestly why our team had to expand so much, is like these digital features take a lot of effort and maintenance to keep growing. But as teachers wrote in and said, hey, I want to be able to put my lessons into folders so I can organize them, we started responding by creating them. So
I understand. So ESL Library was created as a means to share lessons. So Ben created 40 lessons, and he wanted to share these lessons with other teachers so that to make their job easier. Is that right?
basically, yeah. He realized, I mean, he was a teacher. He was looking for materials online. I think this is still true of today. It's hard to find good materials all in one location
Yes.
that are, you know, engaging and relevant. And so he wanted to create a single space where teachers could go to find those materials. And so now we have a vast resource of materials, you know, 1,400 lessons and growing every week. But we also wanted to start adding the platform, those digital materials, so that you can organize things and start seeing your students' results, and basically to try to make your whole teaching life a little bit easier. A little more efficient, we hope.
Okay. All right. Because there's some aspects of the ESL library. So from what I'm seeing, it has become more than a repository of lesson plans, but it's also it has aspects of a learning management system.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
And
100%
you said
correct.
ESL library it works well with Google Classroom, and I'm excited to hear that. However, at Nova we use Canvas, and so I'm just wondering how I would integrate ESL Library with Canvas.
Yeah. So first of all, we're always happy to just like message you and help you get, you know, if you're having trouble just getting connected and using it with your platform, we're always happy if you want to just write into us. But just broadly speaking, this can be used with any platform, even if you're using like Facebook or just emailing your students. The real trick is just posting that link to esllibrary.com/students.
Okay.
And that gives your students access to their dashboard. And from within the dashboard, they can do everything themselves. But if you have a specific challenge with your student group, or you just can't quite figure it out, feel free to write in. We have a really nice team of like 4 people. So we're not this like huge faceless company. We just have a nice team of 4 people that work and help with like our teachers to help them do everything. So Lay is one of those 4, and she'd be happy to help too.
Wonderful. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else I can respond to at this moment?
I think we've answered all the questions. I'll just put in the chat our email address if anyone has any questions, or they want to start a group trial or something. Please write into us and we'd be happy to help.
Okay.
I was wondering, like, could these emails that you've been sharing with all of us participating, could they be sent to our email addresses so that I don't have to scramble and try to write them all down and then risk?
Well, I can answer that question. Basically, all the information that's been shared in the chat, we're gonna Lay and Tammy and I are gonna connect to be sure that that's emailed out to everybody who's registered today. So we'll send that out in the next couple of days.
Okay, great. And just one last question. I've been hearing about a Thursday workshop. I'm just curious, what's that all about?
Yeah, so the Thursday workshop, Lay, maybe you can post the link again one more time. You can go ahead and register for it right now. It's a free workshop. It's through our platform or through a platform that we're using. And it's basically just called creating and using flashcard sets. So it shows you those flashcard sets. We're going to give you time to like create flashcards. So it's more of an interactive workshop. Just a chance for you to actually like sit down and do it, because I know sometimes we learn about something and then we don't always have the time to go in and actually do it. So yeah.
Yes.
And we'll be sharing activity ideas to do with flashcards and stuff too, but really it's just an excuse to give you a chance to like do it and make that time for yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. And I think the last thing I will say is that if you've made it this far through all of the workshop, we are happy to create a professional development certificate for you attending this. I know sometimes schools and districts like that, you know, you have accreditation requirements and things like that. So if you would like a professional development certificate, just go ahead and send us an email at hello@esllibrary.com. Just say, hey, I attended that WATESOL webinar, and we're happy to create one of those for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Tammy and Lay, for sharing your product with us and sharing these great resources. This is actually the final WATESOL webinar for the series. So thanks everybody for attending today and for attending over the course of the series. And we hope to see you next spring, hopefully, and for our fall conference as well. Time and date and location and modality to be determined. So hope everybody's doing well. Have a great summer. And
thank you.
Thank you all soon.
Same to you.
Thanks for the series.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thanks, guys. Bye.